It's Thursday, the 27th of February, and welcome to the Football Breakdown's Fantasy EFL Gameweek 30 preview show. I'm Matthew South.
And I'm Ian Cooper.
Welcome everybody. We're at the business end of the season now. I believe there's 10 game weeks to go left for us here, so that's 10 more preview shows, including this one. Ian, how are you doing?
Yeah, really good, thank you. I didn't really enjoy the last game week, if I'm honest. It was terrible. The football was great. There's so much drama, but on a personal level, awful week for me. How about you?
Yeah, not much better for myself either. You know, it was a bit of a mixed bag in the fantasy, and there was some good football. I won't say I enjoyed most of it, but there was some good football on offering. But yeah, anything that didn't involve teams that I had an interest in seemed to go quite well. So
Yeah.
yeah, should we dive into our teams last week? I'll start this week. I think we're bang on the money, or I was bang on the money for Bradford. You know, Bradford 2 wins, Walker 2 clean sheets. That was easy points there. I sub point one pick for both of us was Gale, and he picked up a tidy 16 points, pretty much exactly what we thought. You know, he picked up 6 interceptions in the 2 games. Interestingly as well, he's 0.5 selected right now, so everyone kind of caught on to it at the same time as us. Similarly, well, less so, but Ben Ward had a decent enough week. He's up to 0.1. And Michael Cheek as well found the back of the net against Harrogate. I thought I'd throw him in up front because basically I thought he's good enough in the Harrogate game. I didn't think they would do much against Bradford, but I didn't need him to. So that worked out perfectly for me because Walker then keeps the clean sheet. I get the Bradford clean sheet points too, and Cheek had already had a little bit of a haul before going into that game, so that was fine. But then 4 glaring issues in my team. Ruben Colwell did nothing, was dropped for the second game. Jordan Willis wasn't fit enough for the first game, did play in the second game, but didn't get the clean sheet or as many clearances as I thought he would get. Radinho Bolker comes off the first game injured. He gets 1 point for me, and Huddersfield lost both games and got 0 points for me. So a very big mixed bag, which put me on 96. Part of me is there, like, considering 4 of the picks I had scored less than 7 points combined. I guess I'll take it, but also at the same time, it just shows how much points we're leaving on the board.
Oh, yeah, no, we're definitely leaving points off the boards. If I take an average from both games, I averaged 41.5 points per round of fixtures. Like, it was really poor for me. So, yeah, finished on 83 points. Like you said, Huddersfield were awful, really. Lost their defensive structure, sadly, due to a few injuries as well, with it really struggling at centre-backs, which makes Michael Hellick's hail even more confusing, you could say. So, Lee Nichols didn't get any clean sheets in either game, so only got 7 points. Critchlow for Bradford got a clean sheet in the first game, but then didn't play in the second game, so I lost out on the clean sheet. That was really gutted. It's always frustrating when you see them play the first game, and then the second game, you can't do anything about it. You can't take them out of your team because they've already got your points there. But not as bad as Dimitrios Gutas, who got a red card in the first game. He got 7 clearances, 3 tackles up to the 50th minute. Really happy with. Looked like they were pretty comfortable. Plymouth Argyle weren't creating anything. And then goes and gets a red card against Barleyman, but 1-on-1. So only got 1 point from him. Didn't play the second game, obviously, due to suspension. And classically, Cardiff got a clean sheet there as well. So I missed out on a lot of points just from that one error. And then Ethan Galbraith, I was a little bit late to the party with him. He only got 6 points in total for both games after getting some really high scores the previous few weeks. As we said, Sam Gale got 16 points. Perfect. He's by far my best pick of the week. And then Jamil Matt, I went for a forward who was pretty safe, and I've clearly cursed him. Also scored 4 goals, and he wasn't in any of them contributing with assists or goals. And so, yeah. But yeah, like you said, for the teams, 18 points for Bradford, really happy with that, which count as the 0 points from Huddersfield. So yeah, really, really poor week there. I'm really disappointed.
Yeah, I think these double game weeks, you know, we're always trying to hit at least 100, 110 points upwards to catch those above us. And I was looking at the league table, and I was just like, yeah, I'm pretty much bang in the middle. You're just below type thing. We everyone above us got more points than us, which is the issue. Which is it's just frustrating because I don't think there's anything wrong with our logic. It's just the way it's kind of played out. But moving on to this week then, and we're basically going to focus on League One and League Two because it's double game weeks for those two, whilst it's only single game week in the Championship. So we're just going to leave the Championship out just purely because of the fixtures. As always, you kind of want to focus on the doubles, especially when there are plenty to choose from. We're not forcing anything in here. We've got 2 whole leagues to explore. So yeah, that's the format we're going to do. The game week kicks off tonight, actually, with Barrow and Carlisle United playing each other. A little spoiler, I have players from neither team in my selections, and I don't think there's anyone really in those 2 sides who's standing out to me, so I'm probably going to ignore that from a fantasy perspective, and therefore in my head the game week I'll be looking at starts at 12:30 on Saturday onwards. But yeah, I think then without further ado, we'll kick off the picks. I'll take us away this week with the League One goalkeeper pick, and maybe just freshen the memory off of last night's heroics. I'm going for Jed Steer from Peterborough, the penalty hero, as they came from 2-0 down to beat Wrexham on penalties and reach the EFL Trophy final. Peterborough themselves are starting to look a little bit more steady. It's been a really disappointing season for them, but they're looking better. As I said, Steer was the hero in midweek, and his last league game as well, he kept a clean sheet for Peterborough against Huddersfield, much to our detriment the other day. It's actually his only clean sheet of the season. But
I should apologise for that, because that was why I mentioned Huddersfield last week, because Peterborough just can't keep clean sheets. So
Exactly. So now they've kept a clean sheet, and I think one thing I'll say is like a lot of the fixtures this week are quite tough because it's in League One. You've got good teams playing good teams. So I've kind of looked at Peterborough's fixtures, and they've got Shrewsbury at home, and that's kind of where I'm thinking a clean sheet could happen here. Steer himself as well, he made 3 saves in midweek. He's averaged just under 5 points from his last 3 away games as well. They've played 3 away games in a row in the league, so only one of them with a clean sheet, so he's picking up points for save points as well. And also at home, as I spoke about the Shrewsbury game, Peterborough at home have conceded 1 goal in their last 3 home games. That was without Steer in goal as well, so Steer coming back in, and there's definitely something, foundations there at the back that are starting to build. Shrewsbury's poor attack is one thing I'm thinking that's also going to lead to this, with Peterborough's improved defence, and then the Blackpool away game. That's kind of like the secondary game here. I'm kind of thinking for save points there. Blackpool, I think, have those attacking options, and Steer's going to get called into action. So I think he could be racking up the points on that side of things. So yeah, I think Steer is in with a shout this week.
Yeah, definitely. It's just, on a side note, it's just nice to see Jed Steer actually have a stable position in a team. Especially like previous seasons, he never really features a number 1 goalkeeper. So it is nice to see that he's finally bided his time and he can actually have an effect on this Peterborough team. And I'll move on to the defenders. The obvious choice is Max Cleworth for Wrexham. Really high average point score there. Bolton at home and Huddersfield away. But I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to go for Tyler Bindon of Reading. It's a perfect time to work Reading, as they've got a takeover imminently, and I'm just really happy to read this news. Hopefully everything goes well for them. But there's also a lot of buzz on the pitch as well since entering February. They're unbeaten this month. They've kept 2 clean sheets against Huddersfield and Birmingham. And with the other centre-back, Amadou Mbengue, being listed as a midfielder on EFL Fantasy, it just makes Tyler Bindon a very easy choice for me. Bindon has a staggering 252 clearances to his name in 32 appearances, and has won the most amount of tackles from centre-back in League One. Reading are 3 points off the playoff, with a game in hand against everyone in the playoff spots. I'm not saying these 2 fixtures are going to be a breeze, but away to Wigan and at home to Exeter, it's just such a solid chance to really force himself into the conversation here. Reading beat Wigan 2-0 in their first meeting and beat Exeter 2-1 earlier in the season too. Bindon managed a combined 13 clearances and collected 14 points from both these games in total. So I'm really hoping for a similar return here. And with Reading's really strong form, I just have a good feeling about this pick.
Yeah, Reading have they've kind of come through that spell of losing sellers quite well. You know, they're still hanging around there. I think, like you say, these two fixtures could be favourable for them. Wigan, I say that Wigan scored two against Huddersfield last week after backing Huddersfield to keep them up. But, you know, like, Reading are still a decent side who could go there, and that could be quite a tight game. The Exeter game, Exeter just kind of slowly unravelling a little bit. So, yeah, I'd be worried about them going to Reading and trying to score. So I think that is a solid option. Into midfield then, and actually had a difficult time picking one player here because there's a lot of options that I wanted to talk about. I think you know, one of the standout choices is Davis Keeler-Dunn for Barnsley, fresh in everyone's mind off of the back of two goals last game week and an assist in the game before that as well. I think he's a solid option. You've got Ollie Rathbone for Wrexham, whose point tally has been really, really steady. He's been chipping in with goals recently as well. So like it kind of across the board there, just points like consistently solid is pretty good. The Crawley pair of Kamari Doyle and Liam Fraser are really interesting choices as well. You know, Doyle's come in on loan after spending the first half of the season in Exeter. He's taken quite a few shots. He's kind of providing that attacking intent for them. He's got a few goals recently. Liam Fraser's joined from North America. He's kind of an interception king right now. He's averaging just under 3 a game, but he's only played a couple games. And then also Josh Stokes, just someone who always love to bring up. He, again, similar to Keeler-Dunn, he's off the back of a double, so he's fresh in the mind, but you know, always someone who you want to like try and see if we can fit him in our teams. But I'm going to take none of these, and my choice is coming a little left field, but for very similar reasons to the rest of them. I'm picking Charlie Webster from Burton Albion.
Lovely.
And he is off the back of 2 match-winning goals. He's off the back of a 13-point return against Stevenage, where he scored, got 2 interceptions and made 3 key passes. Against Lincoln, he scored 2 interceptions. You know, it's 13 and 12-point returns. He's looking absolutely brilliant right now for a Burton side who look a million miles better than they did any other time in the season. Their form is actually really good. They are playing good football, or better football, that suits the players they've got more. They're not trying to be a team that they were early in the season that just wasn't working. Webster, 1.52 shots per 90. He's actually on 0.25 goals per 90. It's a goal every 4 games, but it's also 2 and 2. 1.08 interceptions. He can pick up those interceptions per 90. You know, he's kind of the all-round midfield option here. The games are against Mansfield and Wycombe. Well, Mansfield are struggling. You know, they've kind of seen themselves dipping down the table. I think Burton will be fancying themselves in that game, and they will get chances, and when chances fall outside the box, Webster is the one they are falling to. You know, they have Burrell, who Ian spoke about recently. You know, he's popped up with a few goals, but now it's like teams are wary of him. It's like, you know, it's like the ball is now falling behind him to the edge of the box rather than into the box for him, and Webster's the one who's benefiting from it. They then travel to Wycombe Wanderers, and that's almost a game where you're looking at the interception side of things. Like, Burton are going to make that a really, really tough game for Wycombe, and Webster has picked up decent interception hauls before, so it's kind of the side of the game we're looking for. The last time Burton and Wycombe played, Webster scored and got an interception, so he has history against them. So I think there's a really good shout here, and at 0%, he's someone who might just be like falling under the radar, but I think if his form continues, we're going to see him in a lot more teams.
Yeah, just to say that the fact he's got just under 2 shots a game per 90 is ridiculous for how poor they were at the start of the season. Like, that's a staggering amount. Look at the location of where he's taking his shots as well. They're all central. He really is just crashing the box. Not even waiting for it to come in the edge of the box. 3 of his goals have just come from basically like the 6 yard box. He's really on good form, and I was really excited when you mentioned him. I did see his score the last 2 games, and he was very in my mind as well. Go on to the League One forwards. So I'm going to go from a Reading player to an ex-Reading player, and I'm going to pick out Sam Smith for Wrexham this game week. Smith scored 11 goals and 5 assists for Reading in 25 games, and he's off the mark for Wrexham, scoring against Northampton, and importantly, is Wrexham's starting forward since making the move. Also importantly, their first game is against Bolton, and since Stephen Schumacher has taken charge, Bolton have played their part in some really high-scoring games, including a 4-3 win against Crawley and a 3-2 win against Shrewsbury. Wrexham also beat Bolton recently in the EFL Trophy, which has ended 1-0, and it was a fairly rotated side for Wrexham, who had players such as Ryan Barnett, Matt Cleworth, Jay Rodriguez, and Sam Smith starting out from the bench. So hopefully having a stronger lineup will also help this as well. The second game is against Huddersfield, as we've already kind of mentioned in the review from last week. They have leaders such as Tom Lees and Matthew Pearson missing out due to injury. Spoken about their importance to Huddersfield's backline before, and combined with Michael Hellick moving on January, their backline has been fairly fragile. In the last 2 games against Peterborough and Wigan, both opposing teams had better XG than Huddersfield, which really goes against the pattern of Huddersfield over the majority of the season. So coming up against a really, really strong forward line of Wrexham, I do just kind of see this going one way, and I'm hoping that Sam Smith's the one who scores the goals.
Yeah, I back that pick. I think what's interesting about Wrexham is how they seem to have a league team and a cup team, and especially how late in the cup they've gone. And one player who I was looking at is Mo Fowl, who scored in the week, and he's got 3 goals in the trophy, but he's yet to score in the league because he hardly ever plays there. Whereas it's like Smith is being reserved for the league, basically. So yeah, I think the fixtures could really benefit this one, because one of the reasons I was staying away from like Wrexham at the back is because those games against Bolton, I much more see Wrexham winning that 3-2 than I do 1-0. Even though they recently beat them 1-0 in the trophy, this is almost a different Wrexham side. This is their league side, and Bolton under Schumacher, I just feel is going to be exciting and very, very heart-wrenching for Bolton fans at times, unfortunately. I think they're going to find themselves losing games like this, but in quite high-scoring manners. So, I think the attack is definitely the way to look for Wrexham this weekend.
Well, yeah, put it this way, for Bolton, they can't afford to have yet again another really poor first half. Like, this game could get far... It could really just go again away from them. I know I've said that before in the last couple of weeks about Bolton, and then they've really had some impressive comebacks, but against a Wrexham team who really won't be bothered about how many times you come forward. They're just going to be solid. So, again, I'm staying away from the defenders, but really keen on the strikers here. Going to go into League Two now and go for the goalkeeper pick. So I am picking Matt Macy of Colchester, and it's based on merit. He's got 13 clean sheets this season. To be honest with you, you could go for Owen Goodman. Matt and myself have spoken really strongly about Wimbledon defenders and Goodman, but I just wanted to highlight Macy, and especially the opposition. The first game this game week is against MK Dons, and I have to admit, we have liked a few of their creative players and have selected them before, but I genuinely think they are currently the worst team in League Two. You could say that they're only 17th, they're 13 points clear of the relegation zone, but they have lost 7 out of their 11 league games in 2025. They've collected just 8 points out of the 33 available. That's really worrying going into a game where you face a really resolute defence who will back themselves to limit MK Dons to a few chances and snatch all 3 points. Colchester's second game is at home to Chesterfield, who have also been fairly poor lately, but that's mainly just because of their away form. Chesterfield have just scored once in the last 3 games, but haven't won an away game since the middle of December against a very poor Carlisle side at the time.
Yep. Interesting there. I do have some thoughts on Colchester and those 2 fixtures, but I will come back to them later, hinting at a potential player there. But instead, I'm going to move into my defence, and I'm going to talk about Connor Hall for Port Vale. I think, again, defensively, there's quite a few options here. Ryan Johnson, I've spoken about him a lot of times. I think that's a good shout. But Hull does stand out for me for Port Vale, and it is one of those where I'm leaning on the fixtures as well, because Port Vale travel to Tranmere and then they host Harrogate. Harrogate have one goal in their last four away games, and Tranmere have two goals in their last four home games, and both of them actually it's 13 and 17 respectively, home and away. So for Connor Hall, who averages 6.2 points, has 11 clean sheets and 29, scores decently when he doesn't pick up clean sheet points. It just feels like a game where, with Port Vale, eyeing up the playoffs, creeping ever closer to that automatic spot. They've come off the back of two really good wins against Notts County and Salford. They had that back and forth game with Swindon, which they drew 3-3, but they actually they haven't lost a game since they lost 3-0 to Grimsby, and that was 7-8 games ago. So they've been really good since. They come through a difficult spell, and I think these are two games that Darren Moorside are going to look to win quite comfortably and cement their spot, in competing for that top three position. And, Connor Hall, I think, is just the standout defender that they have. And I think the fixtures, the form, the potential of this Port Vale team just always up for Connor Hall being the pick this week.
Yeah, it's a classic profiler defender for us, isn't it? Someone who sits in the middle of the back three. He's won 176 117 aerial duels. And he actually has an XG of 2.45, which is really high. Bear in mind, he's not scored yet, but he's had 24 shots. The goals come in here.
Yeah, I didn't even speak about the clearances. It's 209 in 29. This is, but it's also one of those where, listen, I don't think Tranmere and Harrogate are gonna cause them any problems. So I just think you could pick up this pick and pick up 14 points for two clean sheets, and you're not gonna complain about it, And anything extra is a bonus. But yeah, I really am that confident about Port Vale this week.
And I'm going to go to the midfield pick for League Two. So it's a player who's going back to back for pod for us. He's upgraded from my sub 0.1 pick, and it is Sam Gale. We have to go back in for him again. As you mentioned earlier, he's now selected by 0.5% of players. In the last double game week, we both profited from Gale, getting 16 points, mainly from interceptions. So how can I suggest someone else right now? They play Morecambe and Newport, who... I'm not saying they're a very direct team, but they do like to play balls down the channels and over the top. And if Gale can get onto the end of that, bearing in mind he plays in a back three, if he gets on the end of them and keeps possession, that's an interception. So if we get this multiple times throughout the game, we can really stack up some high points here.
Yeah, no, very solid. I think Gale is definitely going to be in and around a lot of people's teams right now. And then my forward pick, as hinted at earlier, is coming from Colchester, and it's Samson Tavide. Now, a bit of a risk with this one, and I tried this last week and it backfired. He has just returned from injury, but he came off the bench last week to score the winner as they beat AFC Wimbledon. And I think he is good enough to just chuck straight into the team, because he is good. He is too good. He's 6 goals and 6 assists in 19 appearances. That's 0.78 goals or assists per 90. He's 2.36 shots per 90 with over 1 on target. Just under 6 touches in the opposition box per game as well. And he creates chances, 1.25 chances created per 90. He's a lot of interest in him in January. Colchester kept hold of him, was injured. He's just come back in. Colchester looking good. Maybe he won't start the first game against MK Dons, but he will definitely feature heavily, and he's definitely going to start one of these games, I feel, because he is too good for them to leave out. And as you said, MK Dons and Chesterfield right now, if I can get against MK Dons, who have basically hardly any wins, or they've lost I think 8 or 9 games in 2025 already. They have 1 clean sheet this year, and that was against AFC Wimbledon in a really cagey game. This is not going to be that is cagey for a reason. This doesn't have the same atmosphere around it. Chesterfield as well, they're interesting because they started off the season really on fire away from home, and they just couldn't get the ball over the line at home, and that seems to have done a complete 180. But now they are just losing games away from home rather than when they're at home they were drawing. Again, they have picked up 1 point away from home in 2025. They just look like they've run out of steam, really. they're like 10 points off the playoffs now. Colchester are 1 point ahead of them. You're thinking if Colchester have a good week, they'll be thinking that they can sneak into those playoff places, into that conversation. And listen, it's the same for Chesterfield, but I don't think Chesterfield are going to have that week. I think Colchester will have that week. So yeah, that game on Tuesday could basically be putting a nail in the coffin of Chesterfield's playoff hopes.
Yeah, and they definitely need to be back in the side, really. Lyle Taylor's only scored twice in 2025, both in the same game. And Jack Payne is one of the best chance creators in the EFL right now. So to have someone of that caliber behind you, it does seem promising, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it's one of those picks that it just feels exciting. It feels too good to not suggest. But listen, it's definitely one of those that I'll admit that there is at least some caution around it, but I thought it's definitely worth bringing this into the conversation ahead of some of the other choices that were available. Okay, so moving on to our sub 0.1% picks. As always, myself and Ian will pick a player who has been picked by 0.1% of players or less, and we will put them in our teams for the game week. Ian, do you want to kick us off this week?
Yeah, so you already beat me to it, really, as saying you were hinting him. It's a new player to the EFL for my sub 0.1 pick, and it's Crawley's Liam Fraser coming in from the MLS. On top of this, Fraser has 19 appearances for Canada, which is just really cool. Fraser's featured 3 times for Crawley and started the last 2 games, getting 3 interceptions in both of those games and bonus points for key passes too. So to have a real quality technician in a side who have the 3rd highest possession in League One, it's just such an interesting combination. See what Fraser can provide to this team, and I hope he provides assists, which Crawley really do need in the business end of the season. But yeah, just to have those interceptions as a safety blanket and then hope for some creative work to get some more bonus points. I'm really happy with this pick.
Yeah, no, definitely a solid pick. As I hinted at earlier when I was looking at him, he was in consideration for myself for this selection and the midfield selection. The interceptions are definitely too hard enough to look past, and it was one of those weeks where I was like, for a rare time where I kind of wish I had 5 or 6 midfield slots available, because I'm really curious of him and him and Doyle's double combination could really be something for people to look into this week. But my sub 0.1 pick is coming from a different angle, and it's one of my old favourites in the EFL. Certainly not in this game. I've never picked him before in this game, but as someone who's recently got a loan move and looks just like he did 2 years ago. He is on fire right now. It's Niall Ennis for Blackpool. I kind of came to this one because I was building my team and I was working out what position, would be the best one to move in for a sub 0.1 pick. And I had a couple of options, and I have some other players in my team who also fit this category, but do you know what? The striker option is where this week I thought was quite tough. So I've decided to opt for that position. And listen, Ennis also has a lot of merit. Listen, it's 4 goals in 5 games since joining Blackpool on loan. He grabbed 2 last weekend, one of them an absolutely delightful flick past the goalkeeper. Almost looks like a dummy in a way. Part of me that didn't even touch that, but he definitely did. 2.85 shots per 90 of 1.42 on target, though that is a pretty high on target ratio there. 1.14 goals per 90. He's only played a couple of full 90s for Blackpool. He's scored off the bench. He's really good at this level. He just is. He's that perfect all-round striker if you're a League One team. He's really good at holding the ball up. He's good. He's got good energy. He's got good speed. He's got good power. He can get into the box. He can be your poacher, but there's so much more to his game. The fixtures are quite tough, I guess, in terms of Stockport away. But listen, Blackpool have been, they've been like, it's almost like they just play to the level of their opponents anyway. They've come through tough games already. I'm not too worried in a way. Like they're gonna create chances regardless, just because of how they're set up. And And I think that, Stockport aren't invincible. We've seen that recently. They lost 2-0 to Cambridge last week. So there'll be chances there. Peterborough at home. I know I spoke about Jedstead earlier, and I still kind of back that for the first game. But look, as I mentioned in that pick, Blackpool are going to have chances. They're going to have shots. I'm half backing Steer to save them, but listen, I think I'm edging towards Ennis just turning them in. So yeah, I think Ennis is just a solid pick, I think, this week.
Yeah, I get exactly what you mean. I was looking at the pictures, like, you know what, Stockport is really scary, but then they're not unbeatable. You just look at the last game; they lost to Cambridge with Joshua Stokes scoring 2 goals. So they really are able to get. And as you say, Blackpool, they haven't lost in 2025. Okay, they've had a heck of a lot of draws, but they haven't lost to Birmingham. They haven't lost to Wickham, which were both away from home. So then why can't they go and get a result against Stockport here as well?
Exactly. And like at home, like their games at home have been quite tough. They've had to play Charlton, they've had to play rejuvenated Rotherham. They put 3 goals past Crawley last weekend. They put 3 goals past Mansfield the weekend before. They can score goals. So yeah, I'm not too worried about them creating chances, and that's all we're really after here. Blackpool can lose all these games 5-4 for all I care, as long as Ennis is Ennis is getting the chances, which I think he will. Right, so Ian, I'm going to give you a rundown of my team in the current moment. Now, as always, we both potentially could make some changes before the weekend, so do follow us on the socials to keep up to date with that at FBBD Pod on X and at Football Breakdown on Bluesky. We will keep you updated with any changes we make, any fancy updates throughout the week. Now, my team is currently looking like this. I have Sam Walker in goal for Bradford. Again, I'm doing the back-to-back with him just while they're on the clean sheet run. I think it's just very hard to overlook. And then Connor Hall and Ryan Johnson are my back two. Spoke about Connor Hall. Ryan Johnson falls into that same category of Wimbledon defender who I spoke about recently, who always just picks up really solid points. Bromley and Morecambe, the fixtures for him, I think that's a very favourable fixture selection. And then midfield, I do have Charlie Webster, as I spoke about. I do also have Liam Fraser, as Ian suggested, as 0.1, who I mentioned in my midfield picks too. And my other one at the moment is Anthony Sarcevic, because he is on fire, and ever since I mentioned him a few weeks ago, his selection has just been rocketing upwards, and he's almost at 1% picks now, and he scored 2 goals last weekend. Like, he just hits a point where I'm just like, I feel like you're too good to leave out, like, just in case. And then up front is my sub 0.1 pick in Niall Ennis.
Right, and I've gone for Matt Macy in goal. I've gone for Tyler Binden, and I've gone for Max Cleworth. Not really gone for him because of his clean sheets. As we mentioned before, especially the Bolton game could be really high scoring. But he scores. He's got 7 goals this season, and I'm just hoping we get another one here. I can't turn away defenders that are likely to score. I think it's just so close to my heart. I just have to pick him in there. And then my midfield 3, I've gone for Sam Gale. Just really high points average. Liam Fraser is my sub 0.1 pick. And I have gone for Joshua Stokes. I just wanted something fun. If I can't get a goal scorer from a forward position, then surely I can get one from midfield. So I've got Josh Stokes there. And then my striker is Sam Smith.
Yeah, solid. Yeah, I feel like we have a similar setup in the midfield of all-round midfielders who will pick up interceptions, and then a midfielder who we've got in purely because of their goal-scoring prowess now.
Yeah.
No, that's absolutely solid. Yeah. Right. So we'll move on to our final section for the week then, which is our teams to win. And as always, myself and Ian will place a £5 bet on that team, on our 2 teams to win their first game of the game week, and that part is for over 18s only. And please gamble responsibly. But which 2 teams are you going for this week?
So probably no surprise. First team I've selected is Colchester United. As mentioned earlier, I won't bore you anymore. They have MK Dons away from home and then Chesterfield at home. And the second game, I have gone for Wrexham. Wrexham is like we all know their home form's just really good, so I'm going to back them to get there. And if I'm going to go against Huddersfield at any point this season, especially the way to get the bonus points, I think it's right now. So I've gone for Colchester and Wrexham, which my £5 return's been £29.62.
Very good. Yeah, my two teams are I've gone Port Vale, as I kind of mentioned earlier, the Hall pick. I think they are playing two of the poorer sides in the league. Certainly at the venues they're playing them at as well. I favour Port Vale, who are just on a good run too, and I expect them to keep it up. So I'm happy to get on board with Port Vale. My second team is AFC Wimbledon. I think they're also on a good run. I really like them. They're at home to Bromley, away to Morecambe. I think that's two favourable fixtures for them. I think they should win them both and cement their space in that top three as well. I say cement, there's like 6 teams going for it, and I'm picking 2 of them to win 2 games. They're definitely not going to be the only ones going for this. So I just think these two sides just need to keep winning their games, and I think they will do that this week. But the £5 double returns 1979, which is specifically on Wimbledon to beat Bromley at home and Port Vale to beat Tranmere away from home. Three, two, one. So that brings us to the end of this week's show. Thank you all for listening. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you did as well, or if you didn't, please feel free to comment, leave any feedback. If you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe. We'll greatly appreciate it. If you're listening on any of the other podcast platforms, please give us a like and a rate if you can. It takes 2 seconds and it definitely helps us out. But yeah, we definitely appreciate everyone who does listen. So that'll probably be one of the few times we actually ask for something like that. But yeah, thanks again for listening. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you, Matthew.
And take it easy.